Um, Hello and welcome to the Social Work Research After Graduation webinar brought to you by the University of Albany Libraries. I am Elaine Lasda-Bergman, the social work librarian. You guys probably know me. In fact, I know the people who are on this call right now or on this webinar right now do know me. We're going to talk about some of the things you can have access to both within the library, and also we're going to move to things if you stay as a resident of New York State, and then moving beyond that, research-oriented websites and web tools that you can use. And finally, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for more advanced web searching that will help you get more precise web searches, Googling, that sort of thing, just regular search engine, using a regular search engine, but using it more effectively. So I don't know if Felicia can hear me. I'm going to keep the sound muted for the listeners so that if you have a dog barking or TV comes on or something like that, it's not disturbing to everybody else. So just use the chat feature and we will be good to go. And ask any questions as we go along, and I'll keep the chat window open and I'll look for your questions. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is resources provided by the University of Albany Libraries. So probably the main thing that sometimes we overlook is that there are librarians. So you can, as an alum, as a graduate, you can always use our instant message service to ask questions. You can email the Dewey Library about social work questions at dewref@albany.edu. The Ask Us instant message service is now available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is not staffed by UAlbany people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we have a consortium, and if somebody who isn't familiar with UAlbany resources and services gets the question, they will refer you to the proper person. They'll send an email, and we'll follow up with that when somebody's available. So that is a service available to you guys, and I encourage you to make use of it. Of course, you can always contact me. You guys know this because you guys are my dedicated library users, the people who are on this call right now. If you don't want to email me, I am often on Google Hangouts, and I also have a Skype. They're both Lasda.Bergman, which is my last name. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I don't keep a strict 9-to-5 schedule. If you see me on one of these platforms, you can feel free to shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to answer you. So moving beyond that, there are some free things on the library website. The LibGuides, many of you who took the library seminars used the LibGuides for the evidence-based practice seminar in particular, and the social welfare research seminar has a guide that's called Getting Started with Social Welfare Research, but there's also an internet guide with websites. The idea is that the free resources, the web resources on these library guides are, number one, categorized for easy browsing and retrieval, and number two, they've been vetted for authoritative information. You can feel pretty confident that the material you're getting from those websites is the good stuff, the best we have around that's available on the web. So look for those library guides. We also have an online reference page, which again is mostly web links, but sometimes there's things that don't come up in a regular Google search or something like that that are very helpful, and they're not the first 10 things that show up when you do a keyword search, but they can actually help you find what you need more accurately and more authoritatively. So take a look at those online reference sources when you need to look up some quick facts, things like that. Of course, all of this can be found by clicking around on the library website. If you have specific questions when the webinar is over, just shoot me an email and I'll help you find what you need. I can point you to the proper sub-site or the proper page on our website, on the library website. So Welcome, Reynaldo. I have you muted, but if you have any questions, please send it in the chat window. Thanks. So another thing that you have available to you as an alum, particularly if you stay local, is courtesy borrower status, which means you can come in to the library and you can borrow our books for 30 days at a time. You can borrow 25 of them. You can renew them twice, so that's 90 whole days. You can have 25 books out of the UAlbany libraries. And all you need to do is show up in person with a UAlbany ID card or your driver's license, and then they will activate your borrowing status. You do have to show up in person. It can be at any of the libraries. It could be here at Dewey or it could be at the Uptown Library, but they won't do it remotely. They want to make sure that you are who you say you are, I guess. And we also don't do any kind of remote borrowing. So if you're not in the Albany area, it's not the most helpful. But we can help you locate materials from wherever you are based. Even if you can't borrow directly from UAlbany, go back to that service that you can always ask the librarians for assistance, and we can point you in the right direction to get the books and materials that you might need that we might have here, but you are not here. So another thing that courtesy borrower access includes is the materials on reserve, which are shorter term borrowing periods, usually 7 days or 3 days or sometimes 3 hours. Also, you can take the iLearn classes. Say you're working for a nonprofit and all of a sudden you're in charge of the website. We have iLearn classes that teach web design and how to do Photoshop, things like that. Sometimes that's helpful. They have a lot of really good equipment in the Interactive Media Center. Most of it's like cameras and video equipment, recording equipment. But if you have old documents, for example, that are on, I don't know if you guys remember the little 3.5-inch floppy disks or the zip drives, things like that. But they have equipment in the Interactive Media Center that helps you access the files on those old, outdated technologies for storing files that we no longer have on our computers. All I have is a little USB drive for my flash drive. So that's the kind of stuff they have that you can borrow as a courtesy borrower, again, if you're located in the Albany area. Unfortunately, as we all know, courtesy borrowing does not include interlibrary loan. Maybe you don't know this, but it does not include interlibrary loan, which is unfortunate. And it also doesn't include, the big kahuna, the off-campus access to our library databases that you currently have access to as a student, as a researcher here on campus. You can come into the campus and be logged in as a guest, and we're happy to let you use all of the regular resources on the premises. We will not turn anybody away for that. So again, if you're in the Albany area, that is a good thing. But what we do have is through the UAlbany Alumni Association, we have a couple of specialized databases for graduates, for alumni. They're called the Academic Search Alumni Edition and the Business Alumni Edition, which are from EBSCO, which everybody loves EBSCO. Maybe not everybody, but most people find that EBSCO searching, if you're a recent student here, you know that EBSCO is a very easy interface to use to search for stuff. Academic Search is like the basic EBSCO that we use for undergraduates here, and a lot of grad students also use it, is the EBSCO Academic Search Complete, but this is the Academic Search Alumni, so it's very general purpose, lots of subjects, the sun, the moon, the stars, the kitchen sink. It's just sort of geared towards, more what you might need after school than, a really heavy emphasis on peer-reviewed journals. The Business Alumni Edition also has company and industry information, but they might be helpful. The stuff in there might be helpful if you're into managing a nonprofit or any of those kind of like agency management type issues, or also fundraising, things like that. But to get access to these databases, you do need to join the Alumni Association's online community. You used to have to join the Alumni Association, but now anybody who graduates is automatically a member of the Alumni Association. So what you want to do is go to the Alumni Association webpage on the UAlbany website and look for their online community and set up a profile on that, and then you'll have a login and password for these two databases. Does anybody have any questions about that? Again, please use the chat window because I can't hear you because I have you all muted. Where is the association on UA? Where is it on the page? That's a good question. I will shoot you guys an email about it. Reynaldo says, I'm an adjunct instructor at UA and I'm interested in learning how to access the databases. As an adjunct, you should have a NetID and password, and what I would advise you to do, Reynaldo, is to come in and make an appointment with me, and I will show you around the current website. As long as you have a NetID and password, you can access anything that we have on the, not just the stuff here for graduates. Alicia asks, is the Academic Search Alumni Edition just as good as regular access? I would say it is somewhat less complex in terms of its content. It has less of an emphasis on scholarly peer-reviewed material, but EBSCO Academic has a lot of non-scholarly peer-reviewed material as well. It's made for a more generalized audience, so I don't know if good is the right word. It's just different, because most people's needs when they graduate are slightly different. They don't need the intense, rigorous scholarly peer-reviewed stuff. But I am going to show you. I am going to show you some things. If you're staying in New York State, there's some really great resources that can help you find the if you need the scholarly research, there are ways to get it, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. Daniela found the link to the alumni webpage. I'm trying to see if I can copy and paste it, but it's not quite working. Thank you, Daniela. I'll put it in the email when I send out the recording to everybody. So thank you for finding that. I appreciate it. So if you're staying in New York State, the first thing you have, maybe you're not in Albany, but you're probably near another SUNY school or a community college. Most of these schools, in fact, I think pretty much all of them are obligated to allow anybody who walks in on-site use of their database collection. So you have that. Sometimes they have reciprocal borrowing privileges. So if you're an alum of UAlbany and you go to, say, SUNY Geneseo, you can borrow as a courtesy borrower SUNY Geneseo books in person there. But most of them do not, like us, allow remote online access to non-current students and faculty. The alumni unfortunately don't have the remote access, but avail yourself to the state university system. There's lots of good resources. There's good librarians in all those schools as well. Can be very helpful. I also have to put in a plug for your public library. Your tax dollars pay for this. Please use it. You can access all kinds of databases that they have from home if you have a public library card, and usually they give you a PIN. It's usually a 4-digit code. In the Albany area, it's generally the last 4 digits of your phone number. And so then you can go on to the public library website and you can access lots of databases. I looked at Albany Public Library's holdings, and they have Health Reference Center Academic, which is one we actually have here at UAlbany. It's the same, apples to apples. Alicia, you were just asking if one was as good as the other, the alumni versus the academic version. Well, this is the academic version that Albany Public has, so that's a really good one. Academic One File is also sort of one of those general purpose sun, moon, stars, kitchen sink type databases, and it does have a lot of scholarly research, peer-reviewed stuff. So take a look at your public library offerings. You might be pleasantly surprised at what they have available. in terms of databases you can access without actually going to the library. You know, I know everybody's busy and they want to do it from their work computer or their home computer, and the public libraries have more stuff than you might think in that regard. And then, of course, you know, we talk about in the library seminars how if you find a citation in Google Scholar or on the web or in the back of another article, to look it up in the library system. If the public library doesn't have, you know, these, you know, advanced scholarly social work journals, you can still probably use their interlibrary loan system. In fact, you pretty much can use their public library interlibrary loan system to get the full article. Most libraries are networked to a vast array of libraries around the world to be able to get the materials that their library users need and want. So don't be afraid to do that. And again, most of them, like we do, have that kind of online form to fill out. So if you can fill out our Iliad form here at UAlbany, you can fill out a public library's interlibrary loan form. It's probably very similar. So, you know, use your public library. You will find more stuff than you would ever imagine would be useful there, even though they still have the Oprah Book Club and all the videos and all the things that we normally think about, you know, as sort of entertainment. They do have access to the research that that you might want after you graduate. Any questions so far? Okay, so if you're staying in New York State, the other thing I would advise you to do, and this is really the big kahuna if you're staying in New York State, you're going to want to get a New York State library card. You can do this online. I think you just need your driver's license number. And, you know, you have to have a New York State driver's license, and then you give them the number, and then they give you a New York State Library borrower's card. And then you can access, with your borrower's card, so many scholarly databases. And these are the ones that are, you know, the really rigorous subject-specific databases comparable to what we have at UAlbany, sometimes a little different. The State Library, as you may know, is located on the Empire Plaza, downtown Albany. It was primarily a legislative and legal library and also a medical library when it first originated, but now it has a very broad mission, and it is really, you know, for the benefit of any resident of New York State. So you can see by my slide, they have psych info, psych articles, psych books. They have public administration abstracts. They have the EBSCO that we all know and love, EBSCO Academic. They have a ton of databases on medicine, policy, social sciences. Definitely get the card and take a look at what they have to offer, because it's quite remarkable. Your taxpayer dollars are paying for it, and we should definitely be availing ourselves to this resource. It's really good. The quality of stuff that they have available just because you live here. Yeah, the State Library on the Plaza, Danielle. That's the one. You don't have to actually go there to get a card. You can go to the link and apply for the card online. I would just say go to nysl.nysed.gov and look around on the site for the borrowing card page, because that is a long web address. But as I mentioned before, I am going to send this recording out, and I'll send the slides out after tonight's session. Probably next week I'll send it out, so you'll have all that too. If you know, if I'm going too fast or you can't write anything down fast enough as I motor through these slides. So okay, so anybody have any other questions about New York State resources? Okay, so now we're going to move to the freebies on the web. There's lots of good ones. They're not always obvious. Some of them you'll recognize from what we've talked about before in library seminars and in, you know, appointments that we've had. The first is there are scholarly research databases that are free. They're free versions on the web. Most of them are government sites. So PubMed is the same as Medline. I don't know if you guys have used Medline in your social work research before, but PubMed is the same thing. The free version, most people aren't too thrilled with the searching interface, but the content is still the same. And if you have trouble with it, I can always help you, or a librarian somewhere can always help you search it effectively. SumSearch is another medical search engine that only retrieves evidence-based, like abstracts and citations to evidence-based research. So that's kind of cool. It's a little primitive looking, but it's pretty cool. ERIC is an education database that has a lot of social science research as well as curriculums and things like that. So if you're doing school social work, it's a very helpful one. Congress.gov used to be called Thomas, so people doing social policy used to use Thomas all the time. Now they've more appropriately named it Congress because that's what it's about. People didn't understand what Thomas meant, but you may have heard that in the past. So Congress.gov is all the federal legislation, committee activities, things like that, all kinds of stuff like that. Science.gov is sort of a catch-all for all of the science agencies in the federal government. So you search in one place for all kinds of science research, interdisciplinary site that sort of collects it all under one umbrella, so you're not going to the energy and that sort of thing. Alicia's asking, is there access to psychotherapy.net? I'm guessing you mean through the New York State Library? Yeah, I am not sure. I haven't checked that. My guess is if they had a streaming therapeutic video collection, it would be the American Psychological Association's collection. That would be my guess, that they would have that if they had anything. But let me write that down, and I will check. Okay. So I'll look into that and find out for you. The streaming video is really, really gaining in popularity, and I don't know if the New York State Library has caught up with that, but we'll find out. Okay, so these are some of the key research databases that are available for free on the web. So you can search them just like you search the ones we have here at the university, and get, again, mainly citations and abstracts, but also sometimes there are what they call open access articles available, or reports, things like that that are available for free on the web through these web-based research databases. Another thing you might want to do is track current research, and I have two sources for that. One is called the Social Science Research Network. If you go to this web link, it's a little crazy looking. Again, it's not the most user-friendly site, but it's just a collection of all the latest research, working papers, all kinds of stuff. They don't have a social welfare category per se, but they have a lot of social science, obviously, and healthcare, social policy, legal stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. Take a look and just kind of poke around over there. The other source I have for keeping current is Journal TOCs, and that stands for Tables of Contents. So what you can do there, and this is a totally free thing, is you can go to that Journal TOC's website. You can select the journals you want to follow, and then they'll email you, or if you have an RSS reader, they'll put it into your RSS reader. I get these about once a month when a new journal comes out of one of the journals I'm following. They send me an email of the current articles of the latest issue. So it gives you the table of contents of the latest issue. It doesn't give you much else beyond that, but it's a nice way to be notified of what the new articles are that are coming out, and then you can make that decision if you want to follow up and obtain those articles either through your public library ILL or through some other Maybe you can get it off of psych articles in the New York State Library account or something like that. But it's a great way to just sort of like monitor what people are publishing on in your favorite journals, and they have a very comprehensive list of journal titles that are available for you to get alerts from. So that's pretty cool. I'm actually a huge fan of the journal TOCs. So what else do we have? Oh, open access. I mentioned this a minute ago. Open access, the premise behind open access is if, for example, a federal government agency gives a researcher a grant to do research, right? So your tax dollars paid for this research, right? And the researcher conducts the research and then publishes it in a scholarly peer-reviewed journal. The only way anybody can get access to that journal is if they pay for a subscription or they are affiliated with some sort of library that pays the hundreds of thousands of dollars for these subscriptions. Not individually, but collectively we're talking millions of dollars, and these scholarly peer-reviewed journals are very expensive. The price keeps increasing, and people think, well, but our tax dollars paid for this research to begin with. Why do we have to pay again to access the results of that research? So there's this open access movement where there's still peer review, there's still quality control, but the information is available, the results of the research, the publications are available to the public or anybody who is interested to review and read and and learn from. So there are a couple of sources for open access articles. A really good one that you see now being referenced in a lot of news articles and stuff like that is the Public Library of Science, PLOS 1. They are an open access series of journals on a number of topics. It's not just science, it is also social science. But those are good articles that people are starting to really take notice of. The Directory of Open Access Journals is exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of journals that are peer-reviewed and they're scholarly and they're open to the public, usually on a website, and they're on every topic you could think of. There's plenty of social science and social work journals in the Directory of Open Access Journals. Another thing I would point out that's sort of a burgeoning area is these institutional repositories. We just created one here at UAlbany called Scholars Archive. And a lot of times what happens is a researcher will publish in a scholarly journal, right, a fee-based scholarly journal, and that scholarly journal has the copyright to that article. But the original researcher has the ability to put what we would call a preprint or a postprint into an institutional repository. And what a preprint or a postprint is generally the draft of the article that was the final draft that was submitted after peer review and before it was published. So it's not the official publication, but all the content is going to be the same as what was finally published. The only thing that might change is that theoretically your journal publisher corrects typos, fixes improper citations, things like that. I can tell you from personal experience, they don't always do that so well, but that's the theory, is that this draft is sort of may have mistakes in it, but the final print version would be perfect. In reality, they're usually pretty much the same. So if you look in those institutional repositories, you can see the full text of articles as they went to the publisher, their final draft before they went to the publisher. So that is a really good source for getting all kinds of content. And you can look on a lot of different university websites have these repositories. If you look at UAlbany's Scholars Archive, we are also connected to other universities that use the same platform as we do for our repository. So, there's a lot of stuff, so many cool things out there with that kind of stuff. So take a look for that. And then some publishers now have partial open access. So what will happen is somebody will be able to write into a grant the cost, an additional cost. Like the publisher will say, okay, so you want to publish in our journal. If you pay $3,000 upfront, we will make your article open access. Now, for me to do that out of my pocket is kind of silly, but if I got a grant, I might write the $3,000 into the grant, and then my article would be open access. And that would make it available, even though the journal is a fee for subscription journal, that particular article would be open access. So it wouldn't necessarily be completely open, but here and there you can find these with the publishers. So does anybody have any questions about that? I know I kind of rambled on that for a really long time. I will say expect to see more open access resources because the federal government has actually created an open access mandate. So what will happen now is if you've received a federal grant for some research, you will have to make your article open access. You might not have to do it right away. For example, if you get something from the National Institute of Health, they have 1 year where it can be through a subscription journal, but then after that year, that subscription journal has to make the article open. So they have what they call an embargo. So, but you can expect all the other agencies in the federal government that offer research grants are going to have to do this. So expect to see more and more open access research as we go along, into the future. I'll just touch on books. I know a lot of you guys don't use a lot of books for social work research, but you still might need them from time to time. Books are good for theory. They're good for depth of coverage. They're good for the big picture, the long-term perspective on a subject, things like that. So sometimes you may need to go back and go in depth for using a book. Probably the best one for social work is Google Books, books.google.com. If you search it, you will find the full text of entire books, more than you might expect. But the other thing is, if they don't have the full text, they might give you what they call snippets of a book, where you can just basically see the keywords you used in some surrounding text, like maybe half a paragraph's worth of text. So you can tell if your keywords you have enough context to be able to tell if your keywords are in a relevant portion of the book and if the book therefore is relevant. So even if they don't have the full text of your book, you'll be able to tell if you want to go to your library and try to obtain that book yourself. So that's a nice thing about Google Books. The other ones here are eBooks directory is okay. Project Gutenberg is mostly classic works. Gutenberg, as you may know, invented the printing press, and so they call it Project Gutenberg because when the printing press was invented, it revolutionized communication for humankind going forward, right, with the Gutenberg Bible and all that stuff. The internet, the people who created Project Gutenberg feel, is the next phase of that sort of radical conversion of communicating ideas to the human race. So they called their Project Gutenberg, and they're one of the earliest groups to start putting full texts of books available online for free to the public. So that's kind of their thing. But it is mostly kind of older stuff. WorldCat, as you may know, is the Worldwide Library Catalog. It's a catalog of library catalogs, basically. With WorldCat, it used to just be you could only get access to WorldCat from libraries, but now WorldCat itself has its own web page, worldcat.org, and you can search there for any books, subject searches, title searches, and you can configure your worldcat.org to tell you if your local libraries have the thing you're searching for. So if you pull up a book, it'll tell you if your local library has it. It's pretty cool. But it doesn't have the full text. It is a catalog where you identify the books and then you go get the books from somewhere else. Does anybody have any questions? I'll just check in with you guys for a minute here. Okay, we're going to talk about Google Scholar for a minute. Most of you who are on this call know about Google Scholar. I don't know if you know, when you're not on campus, when you're on campus as a student or a faculty member, you can find that little Find Out My Library link, and it links you into the full text resources that we pay for as a university. You can actually configure your Google Scholar account at home to notify you if the library has it. You won't have full text access unless you have ordinarily full text access, but you will be able to see if we have it or if your local library has it, so that it'll save you a trip or whatever. Basically, you're going to go to scholar.google.com, you're going to click on settings, and then you're going to get a page like this. You're going to click on the thing that says library links. You do need a Google account to do this, so if you don't have a Gmail, if you've ever used Google for anything and you have any kind of Google login, whether it's Google Drive, Gmail, I don't know, I think, Blogger, any of those things where you would log in through a Google account will allow you to log into this on Google Scholar. So you click on library links, and then you search for the school near you or the library near you. And you can see here, I did this from on campus, so the University of Albany was already checked, and Open WorldCat was already checked. So I can't uncheck those from my university computer. So I just put in on a lark Syracuse. And you see here, it does retrieve SU links and full text via SU links. Now, I'm not going to have full text access, but that little thing is going to show up if for some reason I wanted to be notified that Syracuse University had access to the article that I found in Google Scholar. I don't know if does that make sense to everybody? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that? Not sure. Basically, what it does is it links your Google account so that when you search Google Scholar, it'll tell you if your favorite library has the material. But you have to tell it what library that is. That's why I have Syracuse there, because I was gonna, I could check these boxes, and then when I search Google Scholar, it will tell me if Syracuse University has the results from my Google Scholar search. Yeah. So it's kind of a cool thing. If you are, if you pursue PhD somewhere else, something like that, you can also configure this at home. And then you will have access like you would here at UAlbany. Like, if you configure this at home, you can get the same access that you have with your associated university. So I just don't usually teach that in the classes because people find it confusing. So anybody have any other questions so far? Okay. We're getting into the last little bit here. Google, well, let me step back for a minute. In library nerd world, there's a trade-off in searching between what they call precision and recall. So Google is really good at what they call recall, which is bringing up tons of stuff. It is not so good at what they call precision, which is, focusing your search and getting the specific things without a lot of extra junk. But there are some ways to increase precision in Google. There are probably some for Bing and some of the other search engines too, but I find most people are still using Google, so that's what we're going to talk about. So first of all, in Google Scholar and in regular Google, you can use these three tricks. You might already know that if you put a phrase in quotes, it searches the exact phrase. So if you put in child abuse with no quotes in Google, it's going to search child somewhere and abuse somewhere in the same document, but they don't have to be next to each other. If you put it in quotes, it has to be child abuse, the phrase. So I have child abuse, integrated services, both in quotes. that will really, really increase the precision of your search, because I don't know if you've ever searched all those things separately, but you get all kinds of crazy stuff. Entitled : is a way to search your term in the title of the document. So that is a very narrow type of search, but it can sometimes be really helpful when you're getting the sun, the moon, the stars, and the kitchen sink in your results. A lot of irrelevant results can be a good way to narrow it. The other option is in text : which is exactly what it sounds like, given that in title is in title. In text is, does the term show up in the text of the document? The good thing about Google is it searches the entire text of a document, not just the abstract, right? If the full text is available, it searches the full text. But the bad part is, if the full text is available, it searches the full text. It's sort of a catch-22, because it can mean you get relevant things you wouldn't otherwise have gotten, but it also means you get a lot of irrelevant things you otherwise wouldn't have gotten. So you just get more, right? Another thing you can do, and I use this all the time, is cite : a lot of the really good research, a lot of the really good advocacy materials, all that stuff does not come from a .com, right? .com is commercial. We know there's .org, there's .edu, .gov, right? Org, edu, gov. You can limit your search to just those types of domains, so that if you're looking for advocacy resources, you can put in your term and then do cite : .org, and then you'll get all these nonprofits, all these organizations, advocacy organizations that are putting stuff up on the web that relate to your search terms. Government sites also very good for statistics and data, things like that. So there's that. You can also, with cite : you can limit it to a specific website. Like if you did, library databases, cite : albany.edu, you would only search the UAlbany website. That can be really helpful when you have a big, crazy, sprawling website that is really hard to find things on. A lot of times that's government sites or university sites, things like that. But you can limit it to just one, web presence on the web. Not just, you can do these domains, but you can also do a website as well. So that's pretty cool. This is a great one that I like when I'm in a hurry, but you might like it when you're out in the field. Is file type : so say you're doing a search for some terms and you need a report, you need or maybe you need data, maybe you need a CSV or Excel file, something like that, but you need the content. You don't just need like a summary, something like that. So you can limit your search to PDFs, or limit them to Excel spreadsheets or PowerPoints or Word documents. You can see the form here. File type PDF. So that would bring up only results with those keywords that happen to be PDF documents, which is pretty cool. Just keep in mind that if you're doing cite : you need .gov, .org, .com, .edu, whatever. For file type : there's no dot. PDF, doc, XLS, PPT, whatever your extension is for your file type that you want. I don't know why they do it that way, but that's the way they do it. I got a question here. Do we have access to the computer in the library as alums? Yes, you can come to the library and use the computers to your heart's content. We'll log you on as a guest, and you can save stuff to a flash drive if you don't want to pay for printing, that sort of thing. So, okay. So what else have we got here? We're in the home stretch, people. Another thing you can do, there's advanced search, which we talk about in the social welfare seminar, but the other thing you can do is limit stuff by year, by date, which can be really helpful. Content on the World Wide Web tends to be sort of sparse before about 1996. because that's when things sort of really started bubbling up with the World Wide Web and with the internet, and people started putting tons of content on the web for everyone to see. But if you need to limit to an older date or a newer date, you can often in Google Scholar limit by year. And I don't know if you see this here too. You can also sort by relevance, but you can sort by date too to get your most recent first, which is sometimes helpful. Not always, but sometimes. Last trick I have here is Control F. I don't know if you guys know this trick. It works in all kinds of things. It works in PDF documents. It works on websites. I think it works in Microsoft Word. I'm not sure. But if you hit Control F, you get this little search window, right? In this case, it's up top, but sometimes if you use a different browser, it's down here at the bottom. But you can put your keyword in. Say you have a PDF document that's like, I don't know, 89 pages long, and you just need the part about foster care. You can put in foster, and then you can click these little arrows to get to the parts that have your keyword in them and see if the document is, in fact, what you need. So that's a really handy tool. I use it all the time, not just in web searching, but in going through documents that are very long and needing to cut to the chase. So there are tons more Googling tricks out there. I would say just go ahead, this is a long web address, but if you search that title, Get More Out of Google, you'll get this really cool infographic that talks about other ways to increase the precision of your Google searching that are very helpful for academic research or for scholarly research. So I really recommend that if you want to learn more. And of course, you can always email me. I've got other tricks up my sleeve that we haven't talked about yet, or don't have time to talk about tonight. So. Does anybody have any questions? As a final thought, I would just point out we have a Twitter account, UAlbany Dewey Lib, at UAlbany Dewey Lib, so you can follow us on Twitter. The university libraries as a whole also have a Facebook page and a Pinterest page if you're interested in that, following that sort of thing, because we put up stuff that's interesting. You might find it useful as an alum. Also, I would put in a plug for the Dewey Library blog. We keep current information on how to find research on various social welfare topics, as well as some other things. Maybe 100% of it wouldn't be of use to social work alumni, but there will be content, a couple times a month that would be of interest. We publish something on that blog about 3 or 4 times a week. So, so those are available to you as well. Congratulations on graduating and best wishes, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll hang out here for a minute and make sure there are no other questions. And there's my email address. You can always contact me to follow up. Thank you guys for attending. Does anybody have any final thoughts or questions? Did I miss anything? Yes, I will look for the psychotherapy.net access. I will definitely look for that. Okay, if nobody else has any questions, I'm just going to say thank you and good night, and I'm going to stop recording. And hope to hear from you soon if you have any other questions.